Now there's a small problem when I actually try to run this code. Let me write a message. I'm going to go ahead and press send. Now over here in the database, I'm going to click on the database tab. If everything worked out, I should be seeing my message here. But there's still nothing. Nada. Null. Okay, so something's wrong. If you go back to your app and look at the Android monitor, it'll provide a clue. I'm looking here at the warn level of messages. So if we look at this last message here, it says it tried to set the value at this point. That seems reasonable. But database error, permission denied. Looking back at our database, there's another clue up here. It tells me that the default security rules require users to be authenticated. Now this is referring to the security rules file for our database, which can be accessed right here. These rules here are used to determine which users can access what information in the database. There's a rule for handling who can read from the database, and a rule for handling who can write to the database. Now by default, the rules are set so that users can read and write from the database only if they are authenticated, also known as logged in. But you haven't even implemented the login functionality yet, so it's actually impossible to get to a state in the app where your user can read or write. Now we're going to talk quite a bit more about authentication and these rules later on. For now, I'm going to change these rules so that we can experiment and actually get a write working. So I'm going to set my read and write to true, and I'll go ahead and press publish. This allows anyone using the app to read and write to the database. Okay, I want to emphasize that you should never set these rules to true for a production application. Setting these rules to true makes it possible for a savvy user with a bit of programming experience to basically do anything to your database. That includes reading the entire database, which might have some sensitive information about users, or erasing all of the data in it. So because of that, setting read and write to true is for development purposes only. And we can see here that after publishing, Firebase is giving me a little warning. But for now, let's see if changing these rules allowed me to actually write to the database. I'm going to go ahead and try to send another message. Okay, so I sent my message, and now going over to the database tab, I can see that I actually have a message's location, and I can expand that out and see that my message was saved. Congratulations! You just wrote your first data to the database. Isn't that cool? From now on, this messages node will exist, and it'll contain a list of individual message nodes. This messages node here is the database reference that we are referencing here. And if I go and make a few more messages, we can see here in the database, they are listed out under the messages node. And if we're using Firebase vocabulary, each of these messages can be considered a child of the messages node. You'll also notice that there is a random sequence of letters and numbers associated with each message. Recall that every time data is pushed to the database, a unique ID is created as a key for that data. This allows me to type the same message twice, and then in the database, be able to differentiate between the two messages. Now, under these unique keys, you'll find the actual message data itself. Each message consists of a text key value pair and a name key value pair. Right now, all messages show our name as anonymous because we haven't been authenticating users. You'll learn how to authenticate users shortly when we actually talk about authentication. For now, we'll just have to remain anonymous. So right now, you're effectively sending messages from the app to the database. The next task is actually to read these messages and display them in the app.